Hello, everybody. It's Kevin Raber, and we are back for another photoPXL photo chats. And we're happy to be here. Hope everybody had a great Thanksgiving. I know a lot of us are in mourning over the election, but let's get on with it. And we'll persevere and come out of this on the other side. Hopefully, better people. In the meantime, we still have our photography and things like that to go. What I'm going to be doing right now is muting everybody, so please stand by as I figure out a way to mute everybody here. File.
I can do that.
Okay, thanks, John. Appreciate that. Now I'm unmuted again. So today we have a very special guest. If I can make my screen work again. Oh my. Sometimes I'm so technically challenged. You should be seeing the photoPXL screen, I hope. If we're not, somebody let me know along the way that, especially if we mess up, John is usually pretty good at letting me know. And today's guest is going to be Carl Corey, and very excited to have Carl as a guest. I've been following his work for many years. He's done a presentation once before. He's a very good friend to Jeff Shuey, and his work is really extraordinary from a different point of view than we see from a lot of other people, and I think that's really important. As we look at the calendar for events coming back up, we have in 2 weeks John Barclay. Many of you must know John, amazing photographer, lots of stories to tell about his photography along the way. The 25th of or the 1st of January, we aren't doing a program, or it's the New Year's Eve. It's actually the 31st of December, so we won't be doing a program there. We will be scheduling one program in January that's not on the books here yet, but on the 29th of January, we have Tillman Crane, and February 26th, Eric Miola, and there'll be some programs put in between those. I pretty much have tentative okays on those, and as soon as we know what they are, they'll be posted for your next listening and viewing pleasure. I want to recognize our host, Jeff Shuey. He's with us. Of course, I'm here. John Cornicello, who is the founder of Photo Chats and the savior of many during the pandemic. And we decided to all of us resurrect this project that John did, who did it twice a week. I don't know how he did it. And we're trying to do it twice a month, and even that's hard because people are really busy now that they're back out doing things. And of course, we have Holger Miske from Germany, and he does a lot of our graphic work and support. He's done a program. All these past programs are on YouTube as well as photopxl.com, and you can scroll through the articles or put a search in and find these things. I have a number of workshops I'm running this year and some exciting things to hopefully announce sometime soon, but we have 5 printing workshops done with Jeff Shuey and John Panazzo and I at the studio I have in the Fine Arts Center, or the Art Center in Indianapolis. They're a lot of fun to be with. We have Faroe Islands in May. We've got openings still for that, and that's a real adventure. It's kind of like visiting Iceland back in the early 2000s before tourism found out there was Iceland. Then I'm doing the Palouse. I've got 2 summer programs in the Palouse and one August late summer program in the Palouse. Amazing places to photograph. There's only 5 people in each workshop. We drive around in a suburban SUV and we see things that others in carpool type workshops can't see and go to. It's nonstop photography, and you will come back with some amazing pictures. It's a lot of fun, and like I said, we've got other things happening. I've got a consulting series coming up and private workshop series announcements coming up. So look for those in the near future. Juggling a lot of balls right now in the air, but it's all pretty much fun. As I said, we're all muted right now. Ask any questions you have here in the chat. Then when we come to the question part afterwards, you can unmute your microphone and ask your questions alone, and we'll stay online for just a little bit after all that in case anybody just wants to socialize or talk about any news and so forth. So today's guest is Carl Corey, and Carl's a celebrated photographer known for his evocative documentation of American life, especially in the Midwest. He's based in River Falls, Wisconsin, and he brings a unique perspective to his work often focusing on overlooked corners of rural America and the people who inhabit them. His photography combines a keen sense of place and a deep respect for the subjects, offering an honest and yet artful glimpse into his contemporary photography. He's shown at many, many shows all over the place. He's a hell of a nice guy, and his work has a subtlety to it, yet amazing impact, especially with some of the people and things. It's like, just walking into a country bar and finding somebody to take a picture of. So we're very, very pleased to have Carl with us today. So let's welcome Carl. Let me get off of here and there we go. Now I'm back there. And Carl, I'm going to turn it over to you for a minute, and when you're ready, we'll talk our slides. But I think a little introduction, maybe from you to begin with, would be nice about how you ended up in Wisconsin and how you ended up doing the kind of photography you're doing. If I'm not mistaken, you once did commercial work, if not, if I'm correct. And love to hear about how your transition is, how you pick these projects, and how you've gone about working them, editing them, and where you come up with all your ideas. And then we'll share your photography, and you can talk a little bit about some of these amazing images you have.
Okay. Hi, everybody. Thanks for spending the time to visit. I appreciate it. Thank you, Kevin and Jeff and Holger and John. It's nice of you guys to put this all together for people. One thing, I actually became a commercial photographer out of necessity. I was a documentary photographer in school, in college. That's what I studied. And I studied with David Gilmore and Chuck Swedlin and at SIU, and before that with Larry Gregory and such up, and Doug Stewart up at NIU, Northern Illinois University. I'm originally from Chicago, in case you can't tell by the way I talk. There'll be swear words interjected occasionally just to reassure you of that. So when I graduated from college, I realized I needed to make a living, and that's when I bought the Kodak Studio Guide book and did all the exercises in that to learn how to light studio, because I never had a studio or a commercial class or training before that, and I never assisted anybody, so I just kind of went in cold. I jumped in, which isn't unusual. I do a lot of jumping. I fail profusely. I fail a lot, and I kind of in a weird way enjoy failure because I learn from it. So that's how I got to be a commercial photographer. And then when it's a young man's business, advertising, and as I got to be an older man, I didn't want to do it anymore. I got tired of reinventing the wheel over and over again, and so I went back to my roots. And that, in a nutshell, is my life as a photographer. And yeah, I document work. I've done 5 books, and I just do what I do. I don't know what else I can do. It's all I want to. It's all I do. I mean, I can't separate myself from that. So, that's what I have. We have some pictures. The pictures you're going to see are from my last book, which is really an anthology, a collection, sort of a catalog of 50 of my favorite photographs that I've made since probably the first one was 1977, 78 in here. And then up till I think the last photograph made was in February of last year. So they're not in any chronological order because I neglected to prepare a PDF properly, so I just threw a bunch of JPEGs together and sent them to Kevin about 15 minutes ago. So they're just going to be in the order of file name rather than chronology. But if you have any questions, please put them forth and I'll answer them as best as I can.
I was working behind the scenes. Okay, so everybody see the picture?
Yep.
It should be fine. And Carl, just let me know when you want me to switch them.
Oh, okay. Thanks for doing this, by the way, Kevin.
No
Running the
problem.
carousel. I would like to hear the click though. I missed the old click and the fan noise.
I know, and the mechanical sound that went with it. Jeez, God,
Yeah,
remember those days? 80
yeah,
to a tray. Oh,
yeah. And you never put an original slide in the carousel because, well, it would be destroyed if it was original. If it was a dupe, it would never get ruined. But if you popped an original Kodachrome in there, it would be gone. Anyways, funny. Actually, this one has probably the best backstory of almost all of them. I was with Jeff Shewy on this trip back in the late '80s when we were mid to late '80s, back when we were doing commercial work in Chicago, and both of us had jobs cancel, and so we decided to go on a road trip to Arkansas, and this is what Arkansas greeted us with, and it was pretty interesting. But it was a great trip. I remember it to this day. I still remember it. It was a really wonderful trip.
Yeah,
And
the whole deal was we got cancellation fees and thought, well, we ought to go somewhere and do something. And so, yeah, drive to Arkansas in the middle of winter. The only caveat was that we had to get back into Chicago in time for the Bears playoff game. Do you remember that, Carl?
yeah, I kind of remember that. I just
Yeah.
remember waking up with all the snow.
Yeah, we
That's
woke
it.
up
Yeah.
6 inches of snow on the ground.
Yeah, yeah. And this place, by the way, I looked up to find out what town it was in, and let's see here. Maybe I can tell you. I can look on here. This is a Woodland Court, and it's on Highway 63 in Hardy, Arkansas. And it was important to me that that little car that you may or may not be able to see, but it's way off in the distance down the road, that was something that I thought was kind of integral to the photograph and why it made the cut for this book. I just like that whole mystery of that car approaching this cabin. And Woodland Court is now on the National Register of Historic Places. Believe me, it was anything but that when we drove by it. We didn't stay there, but we drove by it and went out and made some photographs. And I just like this photo because of what the atmosphere and what it probably conjures up in most viewers is that whole idea of like travel and comfort, a place, a home, a place, an oasis in a storm, so to speak. And that's basically it. I don't really talk a lot about what pictures are about because I think if I had to, then they failed. But, it's why I made the picture. Was because of those and those feelings. And this is my favorite time of day, either at morning or in the evening. I like it best when the sun's already below the horizon, but it's not quite dark yet. So,
Cool.
not quite light yet, depending on what time of day it is. I actually prefer morning to evening, but this, I believe, was evening.
And did you and Jeff stay there?
No, we slept in the back of a Volkswagen van again and woke up unable to see out the windows because it was a wet snow. It was literally white everywhere. It was one of the whitest snowstorms I had ever seen. And we were on a lake. I remember it was a Corps of Engineers campground, and there was a lake there and a payphone. We both called our wives from the payphone. There weren't cell phones, so at that time. So I remember that there was a little payphone, which I wish I photographed at that campground. But yeah, so that was that. So we can go on to the next one, Kevin.
Okay. Oh, that seems to be easier said than done. Hold on. What's going on there? I might have to put the slide. Oh, why is never things easy? There we go. I got the handle of it now.
Oh, good. Yeah.
Okay.
This is a photograph that was from the first book I did called Rancher. It was a book I cut my teeth on, leaving commercial work behind. And I had done some work. I'd done considerable amounts of work for Marlboro, out of Chicago with Leo Burnett. And one of the art directors that I worked with there introduced me to a scout in Western South Dakotas, and I befriended him, and Robert and I became friends. And this fellow was at a gas station at a town called House Corners in House Corner, South Dakota, Western South Dakota. And this is Ernest and Nugget. And Ernest is the man and Nugget is the horse. Nugget is a one-eyed horse. He lost an eye in some kind of accident. And that's the 63, I believe that's a 63 Chevy that Ernest told me all about. It's the truck he's had. That's the only truck he had up until this time. And this photograph was made probably in 1988. I can look and tell you if it matters, but it's a late eight or 98, excuse me, 98. Um, yeah, he's had the truck a while. He was a great guy, and he was 93 years old when I made the photo. And when he said, "Oh, you got to get Ernest in the picture," he jumped up on the tongue of the trailer and over the wall, that metal rusty wall you see there, into the bed, grabbed the reins, jumped back out over, and got down on the ground and posed for the picture. And it just sort of tells you what a life of hard work will do for you later in years. He really was in good shape. And he has the traditional pen and pocket with notebook that all the ranchers carry. They all have a pen in their pocket, and they all have a little notebook in that pocket. And I don't know what they write in there, but something goes on. So yeah, that's Ernest and Nugget, and it's just a guy that I'll always remember.
Very cool shot. Very cool.
Thank you, thank you. Yeah, and just so you guys know, I don't know, on my computer, the pictures are pretty pale. They're not terrible, but they look kind of pale. So not that I really am so concerned with how they look on the monitor to you all, but I'd like you to know that they're a little less saturated, and it's probably the way I prepped them to send them to Kevin real quick than they really are. So just
All
so you
right.
know. Okay. And it's probably it was my fault, I'm sure. Oh, same book. Um, Another good story. Man, first few got story. This is Dallas and Jesse on their ranch. And this is the road into their ranch is right above the horse's back. You can see it going off in the distance. And they had lived and raised their kids on that ranch for, I don't know, 60 some years. And again, an older couple. I liked how the animals always followed them around. And wherever I went, um, the horse and the dog would follow Dallas. And Jesse told me, this is the strangest thing. These animals just aren't leaving his side. And 3 days later, he died. And he this photo, actually, I did a close-up portrait of him that they actually used in the memorial service, which is unfortunately a lot of my photographs are now going to memorial services, but um, it's an honor to have people do that. At least I know the family. It was something I could give the families of these people. But yeah, it was an interesting afternoon I spent with these folks. Really nice people, and it was amazing how the animals just wouldn't leave Jesse or Dallas alone, and Jesse was like kind of befuddled by it. Why is it what? The horse, they just won't leave him alone, and it was just kind of was interesting. So, yeah.
I love the balance between, the pickup truck in the back and the horse, what he's looking at driving, your eye right to the couple, and of course the dog peeking through. I mean, God, there's so much going on in a photograph like this. It's beautiful.
No, thank you. Yeah, thank you. I do like personally. I like all these pictures that you're going to see because they're the 50 I picked for my whole life, and I've been doing this since I was 13. So, um, yeah,
So, Carl, did you set these up by appointment or were you passing by and just met these people? And
Robert Robert was the guy that I told, the scout guy that I befriended. He's my age, and has a family, and we became friends. These are friends of his and people he knew in the Western Dakotas.
well,
And literally, sometimes we drive an hour to get to a ranch. He would call. He'd call ahead of time and say, "Hey, I got a photographer here," and he broke the ice for me, which is always good, right? I mean, you gain trust immediately when a friend says to a friend that there's someone here I want you to meet, and so yeah, that really helped. Otherwise, of course, in a lot of my portraits, I need to meet people ahead of time and ask them if I can come back because I never walk in with the camera and put it in their face. I would never do that. Um, I just think that's well, it's just not the way I work.
yeah.
And I would always just go in and introduce myself, talk to them, maybe give them my website address now. That's convenient, and they can go see what I do and then know that I'm legitimate. And then I go back usually the next day and do a portrait. But in this particular situation, I had an introduction. All the
So how
ranchers.
much time do you spend with the subject?
I was probably there 2 or 3 hours.
Mhm.
I enjoy it. I mean,
Yeah.
it's fun for me to see their ranch and hear about their lives. It's really interesting, and I like dogs, and horses are okay. But I mean, I like meeting people and seeing their animals, and here in their history. Their son is a national rodeo. Their son was a national rodeo champ. I mean, the guy. I don't know what he bareback bronc busting or something, but he was a national rodeo champ and kind of a interesting. They had a lot of his buckles in the house, and you win buckles, I guess, when you're a rodeo guy, you get big buckles, and so they had a wall full of buckles and stuff, which I would like to photograph now, having matured considerably as a photographer in the last 28 years since I made this photograph. Because after, like I said, after I left doing advertising, which was right during this time, this was a transitional time, I really hadn't cut my teeth back to what where they should be. Um, but um, but some of these made the cut eventually anyway. So
Cool.
yeah,
Okay.
go on. Mhm. Well, okay. This is the only picture probably that actually was part of a job and assignment, but it was not technically part of the job. We'd finished the project. It was for Waterfowler magazine. And I did a lot of work with them towards the end of my ad career because I was friendly with the editor and the designer, and we travel pretty extensively. And I'd photograph guys hunting ducks and the weekend and the cooking and the travel, like a travel thing. But these were folks that owned a hotel that catered to a motel that catered to duck hunters and such. And this was a portrait of them in front of their little gift shop, coffee shop at the motel. And I obviously stole this from Grant Wood. It was intentional that it was supposed to look like it looks, but I enjoyed making the photograph. They were nice people, and it's Susan and Mark. Let's see what's their real name. Susan and Mark uh, Johnson Jones. Susan and Mark Jones, and that's in Clark, South Dakota. And so, yeah, that's where this one came from.
Cool.
Well, I was picking up a motorcycle in Iowa, and I had a camp for the night on the side of a road in a little guy's like driveway, a little farm's driveway. He was right off I-80. I asked him if I could sleep, camp there, and he said, "Oh, no, no problem." So I had my little truck camper, and we just camped there. And next day, I went and picked up the bike a few miles down the road. But this was what my view was that night, and I just kind of liked it. I liked the empty road. So, and this is Luck, Wisconsin, which is a photograph of a town that exists about 60 miles north of River Falls here. And it was just a photo I just wanted to make, and probably my most successful photo to date in terms of income. And the edition's been sold out, and it's people seem to like it. I don't know, but I kind of like it too. I think that Water Tower makes it, of course, but um, it's that's all there is to that. Summer night, July, hot. Um, I did a little series on ice fishermen up on a big lake called Cedar Lake, about 25 miles north of River Falls. And this was one of the guys I met out there. I never saw his face. I don't even know his name. I just call it ice fisherman. I said, "Hey, can I take your picture?" And he said, "Yeah, no problem." But what was important to me in the picture where I posed him was that there's that X in the ice. If you notice, he's like standing in the center of an X somehow, and I wanted to make sure he was there just for a visual, just kind of a graphic thing. I like that whole idea of the X, and of course, you got a safety orange blaze orange suit on and hood, and in the gray, you're going to pop out. And I just thought it was interesting. But that's how a lot of people look here where I live. This is not uncommon to see people dressed like this walking around.
Did you have a particular film that you used back then?
Let me tell you if this was film or not. No, this was not. This was shot on a Phase 1 P20 Plus on a Hasselblad. All the script ones are Hasselblad. Some are film, some are P20 Plus because it was right at that transition from film to digital. And the only reason really I went to film was because I couldn't get film processed anymore. It was getting harder and harder. And then whenever I did get film processed, I had a lot of problems with the film. and there'd be a lot of crap embedded, a lot of we had a lot of mold and mildew in the developers up here, and people just they weren't running the lines like the big commercial lines used to be. They weren't using it enough, so it was just becoming such a problem that I purchased the P20 Plus back.
Yay for you. Gosh, that was a good back at the time.
Yeah, it still is. I mean, I wish it was. I mean, I like it because it was square. That's why I got it. Yeah.
Yeah, phase one is sending me an XC40, which I'm supposed to get sometime today or tomorrow for testing for a month. So I'm looking forward to playing with that little $60,000 camera.
This is from my book Tavern League, which was the second book I did, and it was with the Wisconsin Historical Society Press. They published it. And it was an idea I had when I moved to Wisconsin about how important the taverns are. They're like cultural hubs, they're community hubs, and it's where people meet. People are, some towns are far from each other and they may have 200, 300, 500, 1,000 people in them. But friends would gather at these taverns and meet once or twice a week, sometimes whole families. This place was pretty cool. This is Marty. He managed the stage at the Chippewa Club. They actually had a little blues festival and jazz. They had jazz nights and stuff. This was a nice place on the Chippewa River in Durand, Wisconsin. And after I made this photo and went in the book about 2 years later, I went back there and Marty was in the bar. And he came up to me and he told me that it was the thing that he was most proud of was that I made this portrait and it was in this book. And when I made the picture, he was sick and he was still alive 2 years later. But this is another one that went to a memorial service for Marty. He was a farmer turned stage manager because he just enjoyed the people and the kids. He said, "I like the kids. I like all the kids that come in to the music." And he was a nice man.
Cool.
Yeah. Mhm. This is Bill. He's a TV repairman. How many of you guys have seen TV repairmans lately? He's was up in Marinette, Wisconsin, over on the east side, just north of Green Bay. And yeah, he fixed TVs. So there you go. What can I say? He's in a book called my second book, For Love and Money, which was also by the Wisconsin Historical Society Press. And it came out, how I work is like a lot of my projects come out of previous projects. They kind of evolve. And I noticed how a lot of the bars in Tavern League were family owned. And so I thought, would it be really interesting to expand that into other businesses, any business that was owned a minimum of 50 years by the same family. And so this was an electric type company repair shop owned by the same family for 50 plus years. And they all worked there. And it's not like owned like Ford is owned by Fords or whatever, it was owned and worked by the families. That's important. They all work together there too. Imagine what Thanksgiving's like if you work every day with someone and then it's like, well, let's have Thanksgiving. And they're all sitting around the same table again. I find that pretty interesting. But yeah, so there's Bill and his TV. Oh, this is Junior Sprecher, Junior's Bar and Gun Shop in North Freedom, Wisconsin. I don't think I could have come up with a better name. I think if you sat down and tried to figure out a name of a person, the name of a business, and the place that they're located, you couldn't have done better. It was just serendipity. Junior was a nice guy. He was 94. I was there with my dog Cheddar, and he made Cheddar a liverwurst sandwich. I said, "Oh, here, dog looks hungry. Give it to him." And heck of a guy, and a lot nicer than the photo may imply. This is one of those instances where you might get this idea that this guy really had a big heart. He was a good guy. He's just old school and thinks that handguns and such should be available to everyone, and it's just his deal. Rural, Wisconsin. But I remember talking to Junior. He was born in the apartment that's adjacent to the bar, like right behind it. There's like rooms in its apartment. That's where he was born 94 years ago. His wife and him lived there. They raised their kids there. And I asked him where his wife was, and she said, she passed. And then he says, "We got all we could out of her." And I was like, ugh. I noticed behind the bar, there were hundreds of snapshots of her. Well, 50, at least 50 snapshots of her in all various stages of life, just taped up to remind him of his wife. And So he kind of put on that little, that little joke humor, gruff show, but you could tell that like they had quite a life together, and he really missed her,
Cool.
Junior. This is Chris. She's a waitress up in Superior, Wisconsin. And I just kind of like the whole idea. I did this for Love and Money as well for that book, part of that book. I like the whole idea how she kind of looks like Marilyn. And she didn't own the shop. She didn't put Marilyn on the wall. The owner did. But I like the fact that there's that weird, obviously she's not Marilyn Monroe, but yet in a strange way with the blonde hair and it just was something I wanted to do was do her picture in front of the Marilyn portrait. And again, this is from that book for Love and Money.
When was the actual time frame for when you photographed this? What year?
I'm looking
Roughly?
at Lightroom right here. I got Lightroom right next to me. So when I look away, that's what I'm doing. This was made with the P45 Plus, and that means I had to crop it to be square to fit the format.
Oh yeah.
So it was, oh, you know what I did? I put the mask in. This was made in original 2000, April 2012.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, what's his name? I forget his name. I know the story, but I forget his name. This guy was a machinist. Bruce. Yes, Bruce. Yeah. Brent, and he's a machinist, and it's at a shipyard machine shop where they make things for ships, big Great Lakes freighters up in Superior, and it's his last day of work. And this business is family owned, although he wasn't in the family. The business was family owned, so they were photographed for that book as well. But this was his last day of work. He had about an hour left to go, and I did this photograph of him. And I said, "Well, what are you going to do after you retire?" And he goes, "Fish." And I said, "Well, what are you going to do after that?" He goes, "Fish some more." And so I always remember that about Brent. All he could do, he couldn't wait to go fishing. That's all he wanted to do. And but he was a nice man.
Cool.
Oh, this guy's at he's a machinist mechanic for a different shipyard repair place called Fraser Shipyards. They're pretty big, and it is owned by a family. And they have dry docks and everything up in the Lake Superior region of Superior, Wisconsin. And he's a nice guy. And Todd is his name. And I just liked his wall of wrenches there. Remember some wrenches. You don't use those wrenches on watches, do you, Joe? But yeah, it was a pretty interesting. It tells you how big the machinery is they work on.
Hey, Carl, something I've noticed with your work so far, you've got really beautiful lighting, especially one like this where you've kind of spotlighted, him and shown the reflection of the wrenches. Are you bringing a lighting kit with you, or are you working all natural, or how do you?
Well, these are really dark air. I mean, they're not really conducive to photography, a lot of these areas. So I bought a little strobe and would hand hold it and literally in my hand hold the strobe kind of like a Ouija thing and then do the photos of these people. And I got it down to where I could get it. I didn't want it to be too overpowering, but I had to have enough light to do a portrait, right?
Right.
And so that's what I did. Most of the For Love and Money, no, excuse me. Some of the For Love and Money is done that way, but the next project I did came out of For Love and Money called Blue, A Portrait of the American Worker. That was all done. Every photo in there had that little assist strobe in my hand. And
So nothing fancy, no big
no,
setup or anything like that.
no. After a career of, sometimes on crews, I'd have 60 people when I was doing ads and semi trucks. I mean, a generator on a semi truck, a semi truck that's just a generator to run lights. And we'd light entire houses through the windows from the outside with huge lights. And there'd be anywhere from 40 to 60 people involved in these things to do commercials when I was directing film commercials. So when I stopped doing all that, the last thing I wanted was that. The last thing I wanted was that complication. I don't even travel with an assistant. Because it just is something that I don't want to focus or think about anything other than the person or the subject that I'm photographing and the relationship I have with them. Plus, I don't want to intimidate them. You know,
So
I want.
you're working on a tripod though, right?
Oh yeah, always. Every
Yeah.
portrait I make is yeah, I would say 99.999% of the portraits I make are on a tripod. And I you don't have to do it. And I also use a bigger camera, physically bigger, and I do that because it shows respect for the subject. There's a
Very cool.
psychological reason I do that. I want them to know how important it is to me, and that it's just not me throwing a camera in their face and taking a picture. I set up, I talk to them. Plus, it gives me time to talk to them, and establish a relationship. I learn a lot from them. Yeah, I learn what they're about. There's a lot of reasons, but I walk in with the tripod and the case, I set up, I build the camera, I put it on the tripod, I do all this, and by the time I'm out of there, they're with me maybe 15 minutes in front, 10 minutes, 5 minutes in front of the camera. After 5 minutes, if you haven't got it, you're not going to get it. After 2 minutes, if you haven't got it, you're not going to get it. But they're just around sometimes talking to me, and I just want them to know that I really respect them and that I take it very seriously. And I think it can be reflected in the way that they interact with me too.
Sure.
This guy he's got a great job name. This is called From Blue, that book Blue, A Portrait of an American Worker, and you can kind of see that he's got a little bit more light on him. That's that same strobe in my hand. I forget what it was. I don't really think a lot about equipment, but it was a little strobe, a big strobe, a sun gun, a sun something, some kind of sun something it was called. It's all coming back to me. But he worked at Woolrich, the Woolrich Mills in Woolrich, Pennsylvania, and his job title is back card tender. And it's the carding. You can see it's a carding machine for wool. And he was at the back of the machine, and his job was to tend it. So his literal title on his time, back card tender. His name's Carl Stiers, and he got a kick out of the fact that I was named Carl because there's not a lot of Carls left anymore. It's an old name, but he was a nice man. And the Woolrich people were really wonderful. Small company, smaller than you might think. I think there were only 60 people working in that mill, but really a nice place, really a nice old woolen mill. Yep. We can move on, Kevin. Oh, well, this is just a motel room I was in Horicon, Wisconsin. I just thought it was nice light, so it's just a picture that interested me. This is in Ironwood, Michigan. And well, I a lot of stuff that I do has a political kind of a political bent, or not a political, bad word. I'll take that back. Kind of a social commentary. So this is just a photograph I see. I did it as a social commentary. Oh, this was on my walk across Wisconsin, and this is Pete. And Pete saw me walking down a country road in front of his place, the old Yellowstone Trail, and he came up and said, "Hey, you want a beer?" It's hot. It was hot. It was really hot, and I think July or so, and so I had a beer with Pete, and never knew Pete, never met Pete before, but him and his brother were raised in the house you see here. Never got married. Two old German. Pete Mellencamp was his name, and two old German farmers, and they worked the farm and drank Old Milwaukee, and I just couldn't believe the clothes he was wearing. And I mean, it's like if you had to do an ad for Old Milwaukee, you couldn't have done better than what Pete had on. And I think his hat, I can't, let me see if I can make it a little bigger here. I think his hat says what's it say here? It says cheese. The hat says cheese. And it just, so when you see a print of Pete, and it's a little bigger than what we're seeing on our screen, it's kind of a nice photograph because, well, it's Wisconsin. There's just no doubt about it. So anyway, that's Pete. Yep. Well, I had bought a car on the east side of the state, and Kay and I went to go pick it up, and this is as far back as we made it to Abbotsford, Wisconsin, that night. And this was right after Christmas. I mean, right after, between Christmas and New Year. And this was Main Street at around midnight. And It's a photo I've used a lot for just a Christmas card or a greeting, and um, it was cold. I remember it was really cold, and I just made that photograph, and well, there it is. It is what it is. It's a street at Christmas time. And this is up where we used to go a lot, called Winter, Wisconsin. That's the name of the town. And it's on a lake called Lake Winter. And I was driving by one night, and this scene presented itself to me, and I just thought, oh well, yeah, that's Winter. Okay, so the guy, Robert, that was my rancher scout guy. When I started working with him, his son, Chance, who's the older gentleman in this picture, was the same age as the young man in the picture, Gus. And Chance had grown up, got married, and had Gus, and he's now teaching his son how to work the family forge. And they were making some spurs for Gus. So Chance was teaching Gus how to make spurs, and I did this portrait of them on the family ranch. Notice all the horns, the deer horns over there to the left. But this is in their little shop on the family ranch, and this photograph went to the National Portrait Gallery as just a portrait of Americans. But it was I don't know, I kind of like it. Just for
Yeah,
me, it's like friends. It's photos of friends, and I see that layering and that time that goes on in their lives. I mean, so I've known this family since '98 and been going back and photograph. I was there as recently as 2016, and I'll probably go back maybe this summer just to say hi. Yeah,
cool,
yeah.
cool.
Oh, this is just um in Wyoming. I believe this is Medicine Bow, Wyoming, and it's a abandoned motel. And I travel in a camper, so I don't stay in motels. I haven't stayed in a motel or anything since I don't even know when, 20 years. But but it was a motel there that I saw, and it was definitely abandoned. No one lived there, but yet these two orange chairs were there, so I found it interesting. And I like the two chairs, two doors, just whatever that connotates, camaraderie, a place to rest.
Is that your camper?
That's the inside of my camper. I drink a lot of coffee. I pick up a lot of hitchhikers that smoke. No, I was in a little town called Menominee. Ben, you're on the phone. You know this place, or you're on the call. This is it. I was going into the Burger King to do my duties and to get a cup of coffee. I was walking, and I walked by this little red Jeep that was in the parking lot. And as I glanced in the window, as you walk by, seeing when I saw this, I'm like, holy crap. So I went into Burger King, and I said, hey, does anybody know who owns that red Jeep outside in the parking lot there? And this voice goes, yeah, it's mine. I do. And I said, well, would it be okay if I made a photograph in there? Why? I said, well, it's just kind of interesting to me. She says, whatever, do whatever you want. So I did. I went and I made a photograph, and the poor girl, she was a young girl. She could hardly talk. She definitely was doing some damage to herself, but I found it interesting, whatever this compulsive behavior was that she had. I found it interesting. This is one of my personal favorite photographs that I've made, just for
Cool.
some reason. Yep. This was from oh yeah, the project I did called The Strand, which was the Guggenheim project I did, and this is in Superior, Wisconsin. It's a workplace, and that seems to be the break. And that little orange bucket, after I made I'm nosy as hell. After I made the photograph, I looked in the bucket, and it was filled with sand and cigar butts. But I just liked the picture. I just liked what presented itself to me at that point. The orange and the orange. Again, from the Strand. This is up in the Sioux Lock area, Sault Ste. Marie. Summer night, I was walking down the street. We had just had some whitefish for dinner, and we're walking back to the camper, and these bugs were flying around the lights, and I thought, oh, I'm going to do a time exposure. So I think that's probably about a 6 or 8 second exposure of mayflies flying around lights.
And this is one of my favorite photographs of yours, Carl.
I'm glad you like it, Jeff. Thanks.
And I have a print of it.
Well, yeah, you can have yeah. Yes.
No, I said I have a print of this.
Yes, you do. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. But yeah, it's I'm glad you like it. I do too. I like the just the weird energy to it and the abstraction and well, it's kind of says summer too. I mean, all the photographs have to go beyond the visual to me. You know, in order for a photograph to make it, it has to have more than visual impact. It has to have a little something that you can't quite put your finger on that means something to you as a viewer. So, but thank you, Jeff. I appreciate that. It's nice of you to say. Oh, this was I was showing in Santa Monica at what is it called, Photo LA or something, and I had just walked out from the event and I was walked by this and I pulled a little camera out of my pocket and took the picture. I just thought it was an interesting little display of whatever that is, and the whole parking thing in LA and the blocked off fence. I mean, like we're not going to let you see inside the cyclone fence for some reason, and but yeah, and it's really a self-portrait because I am in the picture. So, but yeah, this was from the Strand as well. It's in Gary, Indiana, about a half mile from the Jackson Five's home. Um, but I just like the juxtaposition of the uh, topiary type work with oil wells and the whole nature tree and petroleum and of course it presented itself pretty well, so I made the picture. Yep. Again from the Strand, I went in to have a donut, and as I was eating a donut and having a cup of coffee, I looked up and this was what was on the wall opposite me, so I couldn't pass that up, so I just made the photo. This is not far from where I live. Um, I actually motorbike by this place probably once a week on my weekend little getaways, and it's just a little tavern. And I wasn't motorbiking at this time, but I was driving by, and it was that time of day I like, and I just made the photo. Thought it was kind of interesting. This is from the Strand. This is up in Bad Axe, Michigan. The photo really wouldn't work if it didn't have the address for me, East Huron. Because it was made for that project about the Great Lakes. That's what the project was about. It was about the strand along the American Great Lakes from the Canadian border to the Canadian border, well, to the St. Lawrence Seaway. And that took me 3 years to do, but this is one of the photographs from that.
Had a question come in about handling model releases or any compensation for your subjects from Stavros.
Oh no, I don't let them pay me. I don't take any money from anybody for doing their photos.
Do you pay them for modeling?
No, I'll give them a print. I'll send them a print, you know. I do not put a model release in front of anybody for this stuff because it's not being resold for commercial, you know. I have some of the blue work actually, somebody bought it and an ad agency wanted to buy some. And I contacted everybody in the photos and I split the money with them. So if for each photo, whatever I got, half went to the person in the photo and I kept the other half. But I told the ad agency that I'll have to research and see if they want to do it. And so then I did get releases after the fact. The thing I find is that if you throw a model release in front of someone, the whole dynamic changes because now you're talking legal. Now you got legal documents, you got this. You're no longer my friend. You're presenting me with the document, and no, it just doesn't happen. No, I don't do that. This was also from, oh, that picture, by the way, photographer's note. It was so windy, I had to hang the camera bag from the bottom of the tripod and um, stand on the windward side. Literally, it was so windy. The wind was coming off of Lake Ontario, and this is in upstate New York. And but it's just a photo I like. I like the whole breaking through the fence, you know, the whole dynamic of that energy breaking through the fence, and the colors work. also from the Strand. It's the last picture in the book I did on the Strand. Um, it's up on Lake Ontario as well, right below the St. Lawrence Seaway. Um, I just, it just worked out, you know. Again, from the Strand, kind of a funny picture. I really wasn't thinking about what's the guy,
Andrew Wyeth.
thank you. I was going to say Winslow Homer, but Andrew Wyeth. And I wasn't thinking at all about that. And then people started making that comment. And so now that's all I see. Thanks for ruining it for me. But no, actually, I made the photograph because I thought it was quite humorous that there's this huge body of water behind this house that has fabricated a landscape and needs to water it. And I also like the fact that the hose looks like it's going into the water to get the water. So this to me I was like chuckling when I made the photo. So that's kind of where this is at. That's my sense of humor. And this is not my camper. That's my disclaimer, but it's a little trailer that was in a field I was driving by, not far from this is my neighborhood, not far from where I live. And I just thought it was pretty interesting. So I have nothing, it's hard to explain, but this is River Falls. This is Ryan and his daughter and his niece looking on behind a picture. The little niece, they're boiling maple syrup in April, early April. The little girl wanted to be in the picture, and for some reason, Ryan and the other girl, the other little Tilla, the girl in front of her father, were kind of like didn't want her in the picture, but she just was so curious what was going on, and she made the picture for me. She made the photograph. Her
Carl, I just love the way you have so many hidden and obvious things in the picture. It's a joy to kind of explore all the aspects of images when you see something like this. It's pretty cool.
I'm glad you said that because really it brings us back to one thing. There's nothing like looking at a print, and there's nothing like looking at a print that is large enough. It doesn't have to be huge, but it is large enough to show what your intentions were, what's in the photograph. I think so many people now look at social media and I mean, man, if you spend 3 seconds on a photograph, that's a long time. People just blaze through don't like, and it's done a lot to demean our craft. I don't really see social media as a benefit to the serious photographer at all. And I have to say this, I use Instagram. I'm on Instagram. And it's worked for me. I've had success with Instagram. But when I go through Instagram, I follow some people and I see the work. I always notice that the very, very best work seems to have the fewest likes.
Yes, isn't that amazing?
It's amazing. I mean, the work that really is sensitive, that's really got some soul to it, and then you'll see something that's just like, yeah. And it's a weird little thing I've started to notice in the last year or so. And yeah, it's amazing.
Well,
But
I find it interesting that you can put good photographs up and do all the things you're supposed to, and your audience doesn't grow at all, or at least the people that mark it as subscribers or whatever.
yeah,
But coming back to the print, those that know me, and Jeff's part of teaching about the printing. I'm a really firm believer, basically, because it's the old school, that you really don't have a photograph until you can hold it in your hands and explore it. And whether it's a small 4x6 or a big wall portrait, a print, especially when you look at one as delicate as this. I love the little girl standing by the guy. His elbow is cocked in such a way that it kind of takes you to her head, and then her arms are kind of fluttering around like a butterfly. And then all of a sudden you discover the girl behind the wall over there and, what she's seeing. And there's a whole story being told here. Just, fabulous capture that you've done here. I love it.
thank you. Yeah, I'm glad you like it. Thank you. Yeah, it's right there with Pete for me. It's one of those photos. Well, actually, all the photos, we're seeing photos that I selected out of 16,050 photographs. So obviously, I personally, and it was totally hedonistic. the editing of this. Was like, what do I like? What do I? So these are all photographs that I think mean the most to me,
I love her.
that I made.
I
Mean the
love
most.
her dirty feet and all. I mean,
Yeah.
there's just so much going on there. It's like, wow.
Yeah. And the syrup's really good too.
Oh, I bet. There's a new movie coming out called Sticky. I guess there's some big Canadian syrup battle. It's going to be pretty funny from what it looks like. So we have to
Oh
keep our
yeah.
eye on TV for that. Yeah. All-star cast. Should be fun.
This was I went to school at Southern Illinois University for the last 2.5 years of my college, and this is in some people say Cairo, some say Cairo. I say Cairo, Cairo, Illinois, and really I've traveled a lot in the country, and Cairo, Illinois is the beginning of the Mississippi Delta. It's right at the southern tip of Illinois where the confluence of the Ohio and Mississippi rivers are. And it is truly, truly a southern town on par with any of the most destitute towns in Mississippi or Arkansas. It's really it's a tough place for not the people are fine, they're wonderful. I really like the people on the Delta a lot. Some of the nicest people I met. But economically, man, it's just a struggle. And this is the center of life in that town. And I chose to photograph it when no one was there because I felt that somehow I would be taking advantage of them I don't know how to explain that, but taking advantage of the residents to have them in the photograph. And I also wanted people to be able to identify with the place, which is why I don't have people in a lot of my photos, because I think that lets the viewer really enter the place without having to interact with a person. Portraits, on the other hand, that's why people always look at the camera. And I want you to interact with the people. I want the viewer to really connect with the person in the portrait. I try to remain out of the way in all of these aspects. So, but yeah, this is
Beautiful. Yeah. Beautiful, beautiful stuff.
this is up by me. Just I was driving home from wherever I was going, and it's probably about 40 miles from my house. And it's just this gray day, and it presented itself. I thought everything was right, and I just made the photo and stopped the car. I always have a camera. I always have a tripod in the car, and so I got out and made the photo. I just like the way it was set up, the colors. Oh, this is by me. This is in River Falls. This is Bruce. Bruce is an extremely intelligent man who chose to live like this. That's his house, and that's his pet rooster. He lives on eggs and cheese primarily, and the rooster is necessary for the creation of eggs. So he doesn't eat his chickens, and that's Bruce. And he splits his own wood, grows his own stuff, and heck of a nice guy. Those are all beer cans over there by the blue thing. But he
Oh,
doesn't.
God.
But no. That could be a little misleading thing. I'll bet he doesn't have more than 2 or 3 beers a day, all day in the summer. It's just he goes to the dump because he's got to take this stuff to the dump in his car, maybe 3 times or 4 times a year. So, you see a big buildup there. But Bruce is a very pretty sober guy. So he just left. He moved to Oregon. I saw him about 2 weeks ago because he can't stand the political climate in Wisconsin anymore. So he left.
Two things about this shot that I love, Carl, is he's got full sleeves and leg tats, right?
Yeah, he's got he's very traditional tatted.
Yeah.
Like what we Pacific.
Polynesian.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's good thing you're here, Jeff. You're correcting me on all. You're helping me through all this
Oh,
stuff.
I know. I try to help. The other thing that I love, and Jay Maisel always says, be careful about putting type in the photos because people will read it. I just love the fact that it says rip right. Now I know it says grip right.
Yeah.
But I still love the rip right.
In both instances, it's kind of rip right.
Yeah.
But I also love the relationship with the rooster, looking at him and hanging on his arm. I mean, it's so interesting, just amazing.
Yeah, I mean that, I had to have that background. If that rooster was in front of the stickage, right, we wouldn't see him too well. So I had to do this. I came and talked to Bruce, and I said, I'm going to come back. I'll be back. And then he had a cell phone. I called him, said, "Hey, it looks like good weather this afternoon. How's it look?" And then I came out. He knew what we were going to do. So I came out, we had a beer, we did the photo. And it was semi planned and
Well,
but not staged. I mean,
it
nothing is
works.
staged. Yeah, other than him sitting there with his rooster. I said, "You got to be in front of the White House so I can see the rooster."
And you got the smoke coming out of the chimney up there. I mean, the subtleties that you
Mm.
find as you explore your images are just truly really cool.
Well,
Yeah,
thank you.
I love the lack of contrast. And it was the same in the one about the syrup. There's a tremendous light in these, and you've all the shadow details, and none of the highlights are burnt out. It's how much post processing would you do on an image like that, Carl?
Well, mm, I I really don't do anything you couldn't do in the dark room.
Yeah,
It's kind of my law. Hey, Paul, how you doing? Nice to see you. It's kind of like my little rule, my self-imposed rule is that I won't go beyond what what I could do. And that doesn't mean I don't do what you could have done with colorless masks either. Okay. So I mean, I sometimes I'll do things where like, oh, I'd really like to like do this. But I really keep that in mind if it could be done analog wise.
yeah,
The larger I'm a firm believer in a low pixel count, high size sensor
yeah,
because they have a very noiseless, creamy filmic effect.
Yep.
So this is a 50 megapixel sensor that I use now. It's a Fuji GFX, whatever that is. And before that, I had the same basic sensor in a back that went on a Mamiya press camera. Uh,
Huh.
same uh the Lutaflex that I built, which I loved, but it was just so heavy and I actually kind of miss it. But so now I use the GFX, but I use vintage Pentax lenses on them. And the reason I do that, Paul, is it helps with that kind of filmic look of the portraits and stuff that I do. I'm really not trying to lose that look of film.
yeah.
Uh yeah.
I
Well
like a
done.
photograph that looks like the way I saw it when I was there. So
Yeah.
when I at that, that looks true to what you're likely to see when you're standing there in that position.
Yeah.
So they just have this authenticity about them that makes them exceptionally good.
Well, thank you. I think technique can get in the way a lot of times, right? I mean,
Yeah,
I was going up to my daughter's cabin and I needed to pick up some whatever, chips or groceries or beer. A lot of times it's beer. So I needed to pick something up. So I went into the little grocery store. And as I was walking out, uh, this was there. It was just, I went and put the groceries, beer in the car and said to Kay who was in the car, "I'll be back in 5 minutes." And I went in and just stood there and made the photo with my little Fuji, the one that's always with me, little X-Trans type camera.
Yeah,
So yeah,
that's good. No. So do you have the camera with you all the time, or is it like in the
always.
car ready to get if you need it?
No, I have one that's with me all the time.
Very good. The old philosophy. I love it.
This was also from no, this was nothing. This was a little trip. I just needed to go away and went down to southeast Minnesota, the Driftless region of Minnesota, and spent 2 nights just exploring towns I had never seen before. And this was in a town at about 10 o'clock at night. This was in a little schoolyard, and I thought it was funny. I mean, to me, it was kind of a humorous little
Yeah,
picture.
very cool picture. Have you ever run into any difficulties with people challenging you at night doing the stuff that you do?
I've been arrested probably 10 or 12 times as a photographer. Not arrested. No, only arrested a couple times. I've been uh interviewed by the police that many times because people are scared of cameras and it terrifies them because it's a proof, right? It's a what are you doing here? No, I I don't go into a yard. I don't trespass. I won't go into a yard, so I'm on the street. But I had a woman on that very same trip. During the middle of the day, I had a woman chase me down the street going, Mister, Mister, hey, Mister, screaming at me. What are you doing? What are you doing? Why do you have a camera? Why do you have a camera? And then, of course, the police came because she went back in her house and called the police. And my answer now, I used to explain to, well, I'm a photographer. I do this. My answer now is that, oh, I'm a tourist. I'm just a tourist with the camera. I'm on vacation. That works perfect. That works better than any explanation I used to use before. I'm a tourist. I'm on vacation. And they leave you alone with that.
Good
This
advice.
is a closed movie theater in the same town. Remember way back when we started this, if you're still awake, that Marty was in, the Chippewa Club. This is the same street in that town. It's down about, an eighth of a mile. And it's the closed movie theater. And I was just walking around there one day and I just like this picture of
Perfect.
the place,
Yep.
So, yeah. Oh, wow. Look how that worked. I mean, and that just happened. That's a movie theater in Paducah, Kentucky. I was coming back from the South, the trip to the South to photograph, and this was in Paducah, Kentucky, a town I had never seen until I was there and made this picture, which was only about 2 years ago, 3 years ago. And it was where we got our TV station from, the TV station when I was in Carbondale. It came out of Paducah, Kentucky, and it's a really nice town. I mean, it's a really nice town, and a lot of history. And I like Northern Kentucky, Northwest Kentucky a lot. So it was interesting. But anyway, this is a mannequin.
I'm sorry.
This ain't a human being, but what the hell? This is in Chicago. This is the old transformer plant I used to drive by on my way into the studio a lot. And I've been going to Chicago now. This will be the third year. I'm going next week. And I just walk around and I make photographs of my hometown. Just no reason at all other than just to kind of document my hometown. But this was there. I'm standing on a bridge over the south branch of the Chicago River and made the photo. The problem was having no trucks going over the bridge so I could make the exposure because the bridge it was a bridge that would vibrate a lot when trucks went over. But so I was there for a while. I was probably there for a half hour to make this picture, just waiting and waiting, and probably did 40 or 50 exposures because I didn't know if they would vibrate or not, and it's hard to tell. But this was one of two or three that were actually okay, that worked.
Cool.
So.
I
Oh yeah, it is. This this is probably one of my more recent portraits. This is Nancy and Don. Don died 3 weeks ago. Ain't I full of joy? Don was sick at the time we did this. We knew he was sick. He's a friend of a very good friend of mine, and I went with my friend to meet Don and such. And then about the third or fourth trip, I asked if I could make a photo in this house because had they collect things. And so I did this photo of Nancy and Don in one of their living rooms in their house. And it's in Minnesota. These are Minnesotans. So and he didn't kill the bear. He got it at a garage. Everything comes from garage sales and yard sales and flea markets, but he thought it was kind of cool to have a bear rug. So I thought, oh, I'll put it up in front. So
once again, one of those pictures you can explore all the way back to the dining room table and the tiger on the banister. It's a joy to have your eyes find things and look at things other than just the way the subjects are there, which are telling their own story. Carl, you got a unique talent. I love what I'm seeing here.
thanks, Kevin. It's nice of you. Oh, this is where my dad's brothers lived in Florida after they left Massachusetts. My dad's originally from Worcester, and they moved down into this area, Zephyr Hills, in not far from Tampa. And so I was there and I was visiting. My uncle had his 100th birthday. One of my uncles, he's the oldest one. He's the last remaining of the four Corey brothers. And so I drove down to see my cousins I hadn't seen in 40 years. And it was just really a wonderful time. But this is in I camped. I parked my camper in the same facility. And so I camped in the gated community. And this is one of the houses there. And for all my friends that live in Florida, please don't be offended when I say this, but there's not enough money in the world to have me live in Florida. I couldn't believe what I saw there. People are nice enough, but what they're doing to that country, that state, that landscape, I saw bulldozers bulldozing down full-grown live oaks, um, 300-year-old trees, beautiful oaks and savannas, just bulldozing them over to put up another pawn mattress liquor store shop. And it's amazing what that topography has become there. Someone really needs to, someone other than me really needs to get down there and do some work about what's happening in Florida. It's pretty amazing. And it's hotter than hell, and I don't like the heat, as you can probably tell, because I live in Wisconsin.
Yeah.
Anyway. Oh, this is in Florida. I was making a photograph of the cafe, and this guy came out waiting for a ride, and he made the photo for me. So I was across the street, and I mean, obviously he probably saw me. When he really saw me, he went back inside. So I had to work really quick. This was one of those like I got to work quick, and because I knew as soon as someone sees a guy with the camera, they're not going to stand there. They're going to go back in. So that's a photo there, and I kind of think if it wasn't this photo wouldn't have made the grade if he wasn't there. So yeah. Well, this my humor again. So. It's a theater down south somewhere. If it matters, I don't know. It's somewhere in Tennessee. And this is probably the last photograph that you're going to see. This was made just most recently. And this is right here by me, not far, a couple miles away from where I live, to the north where it flattens out. And it's just what it is. It's in January, February, winter radio tower at night. And I just kind of like the symbolism of it. I use this photo a lot look, see, that's Chicago. That was one of my Chicago photos when I was in Chicago. It's really not in the city, but it's urban. It's one of the close suburbs, like the very neighboring suburb. So
Was the cart there? Or did you place the cart?
no, I don't place it. I don't do that. No,
That's
that was
interesting that a couple of your photographs always have these beautiful foregrounds, like the hose and the child's cart in front of that warehouse type building, and this cart in front of Sears. Well, you're lucky that way. It's really cool.
That's
thank
not luck.
Well, I mean, but it's
No,
I
it's
know what you
good
mean.
fortune.
It's serendipity. It's
Yeah,
serendipity.
it's serendipity and good fortune. And he goes and wears out shoes walking. So he goes, finds these things. And I have a great admiration for Carl.
I do too. I just love these photographs. Oh,
Although
I don't
the
move
cap,
anything. What'd you say, Jeff?
well, I was going to say the cap. I just,
Oh, well, I like it because I haven't cut my hair yet and it's a little long.
yeah. Okay.
Anyway, this is an alley. We used to live when Kay and I first got married. We lived in this neighborhood, or maybe it was before we got married. She'd come visit me during the daytime in this neighborhood. But it's Wicker Park in Chicago, which back in the late 70s was really a really tough. It was a bad choice to live there. Now it's really hip. It's the art center. You know how everything goes in cycles, little concentric circles, the waves of urbanization and regentrification. So now it's like a really kind of cool area, and there's great little cafes. So I went there to visit, and this just presented itself. I just kind of like the photo.
I wonder how Adobe's Photoshop remove distractions will work on all these wires. It'd be a great test shot.
Yeah, no.
Beautifully done.
And this is an old photo. This is from something early 80s, early, maybe late 70s. I'm not sure exactly where this is, but I think it's Milwaukee. So I'm going with Milwaukee. I remember a trip to Milwaukee with my rep agent at the time to meet an ad agency for a project. And I had to go to meet, and we drove up there and we spent the night. And, of course, I gravitate from the Pfister and great hotels and restaurants to like these kind of areas. So somehow I ended up here by the Gravy Dog. But it was I'm thinking it's Milwaukee, but I like the photo. Really, it just, for me, I like it because it just looks like what I remember being a real young man, like how cities were. So it's just something I like. Yep.
I think that's it.
Oh, good. There we go.
I'll stop sharing and we can come back around here. Very, very, very incredible presentation and really amazing stuff.
Well, thanks, Kevin.
I need to order a book or two now, which I'm going to probably do by tonight.
So I was going to post some of the links, relevant links to Carl's information. But prior to that, Carl, I have some photographs that I'd like to show.
Oh God, Carl, you don't know what you're getting. This I've been through this.
Oh, I do know. I know it's coming.
Would it be okay, Carl?
Well, as long as they're not demeaning. You don't have those nudes you did of me, do you?
No, for some reason that it didn't render in the pixels. I don't think you show up when you take your clothes off.
That's right. Or look in a mirror.
So you're going to have to.
I'm doing it right now, Jeff. You should be good.
Okay. Okay. So
Well, you've
Carl and
been
I have
already.
known each other for a long time. And this was a trip to Big Bend, Texas. You remember this one, Carl?
Yeah. I almost died from sun exposure.
Yeah. Well, you were doing a time lapse from sunrise to sunset. And somewhere around 3 o'clock in the afternoon, you were like you were dehydrated and sunburned, and boy, you were miserable. But this is one of my first portraits of you. You remember this? I love this hat.
I do. Yeah. Yeah. That was the BMW MOA hat, wasn't it?
Yes, it was.
Wasn't it?
Yeah.
And it was like a corduroy, wasn't it? Corduroy?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I'm wearing a corduroy hat and a flannel shirt in Big Bend, Texas.
Yeah.
That just sort of should tell you something.
Yeah.
But anyway.
So this is I know Carl loves this, a shot that my daughter actually shot of Carl, I think. And then from this photograph, she did a drawing of Carl.
Yeah, isn't that nice? I have that. Yeah.
Which I've given Carl. And then one of the things that Carl and I used to do is to go on motorcycle trips. This is Carl and me and oh God, what the hell's his name?
Burt Gardner,
a copywriter, creative director up in Minnesota. And you see, we're all got our arrow stitches on, right, from motorcycle.
Yeah.
And then this is the same crew with Jed and what's his name in the back.
Greg.
Somewhere in eastern Wyoming.
Yeah. The day we ran into the bear and Burt chased the bear away. Remember? Hanging the pots?
Yep. Yeah. And then Carl and
A little
I.
history about Burt. I just got to say, Burt Gardner was the guy that created the minivan with Lee Iacocca. He was the head of creative for Bozell Advertising, and him and Lee were hunting quail or pheasants, and they were trying to resurrect Chrysler. Chrysler was really in not good shape, and they came up with the idea to create a minivan, and that's Burt's kind of claim to fame. But he was a hell of a guy. He was truly a hell of a human. Great friend, a great man.
Yeah. And then you and I that was your R100.
Yeah.
BMW, and this was
I missed profusely.
Yeah, I missed my GS 1100. I got a 1200 Adventure that I drove 2,000 miles and got rid of because I hated the bike. But you and this was a trip out to California, I'm pretty sure. Because I remember driving behind you in LA, and you just purely pissed me off because you were used to lane splitting, and I never lane split, and you just took off and left me behind. But then a lot of bike-to-bike photography, although I don't think you photographed me a lot. Not while we're riding.
No tripod.
This was funny. This was outstanding. Carl is outstanding in the field of photography, right?
That's right. There I am, outstanding in the field.
And then checking your email. This was someplace in New Mexico. I can't remember. At some place like the flower gardens, or I don't remember. This was coming back from LA, somewhere in New Mexico. This was Eastern Sierra, up in the mountains in California, I think, right?
Yeah.
And another Carl portrait. Carl did not like to ride behind me. He liked to have me ride behind him.
I don't
So
like to ride
yeah.
behind anybody. It
Yeah,
was
I
just
know.
my
You
thing.
like to be out front.
I like to be the front. Yeah, that's my deal.
Yeah.
Everybody will tell you that, but that's my deal.
And if you remember, we came up to this. I actually have I couldn't find it, a picture of you coming around the corner. But it was like, I don't remember which way we went or which way we came from, but this was another New Mexico. No, this might have been Utah. Escalante, I think. Yeah. And then you wanted to get up on a higher elevation, if I remember correctly.
Mm-hmm.
And this was a series of you coming at me. And I think you shot me in this road too. I've
I
got a
did.
print of you that you gave me of me. You know, I looked for the Luna Mesa Cafe, and it's not there anymore. The last time I went through,
Imagine that.
yeah. This was fun.
Oh, yeah, I
Independence,
remember this. I remember this.
Independence Pass in the snow, elevation 12,000, and then this is my bike portrait. That's the thing. We used to do bike portraits of our motorcycles in interesting places, and you were not particularly pleased that I was stopping in the
Right.
snow to take my photograph of the bike.
No.
I mean, look at this face. Oops, too small.
That's okay.
Another shot of Carl from behind. Now this was a fun trip. This was you and I. Well, this was in your
We were in a little sports car.
in this little sports car. Yeah. Do you still have that?
No.
No. You do go through vehicles quite a bit.
Yeah.
And this is one of the favorite vehicles, your little mini Winnie.
Yeah, it's my favorite vehicle of all time. But yeah.
And that was fun. Although I got to tell you, this was awful damn small for you and I to live in for a few days.
That was by design, Jeff.
Yeah. that it wouldn't last long. Is that what you're saying?
Well, I mean, you buy a pickup truck. It's amazing how many friends you get.
Yeah.
No, that camper it wasn't, I'm teasing you, of course, but it was small, but you know what? It was perfect.
It was perfect for what you did.
For me and Cheddar, for me and my dog to go, it was as good as you could hope for.
And then this is on the road trip up to Duluth, Minnesota. And then everybody can snap a picture of this. This is your QR code for your website.
So I could write the vehicle off its signage.
Yeah. And then checking we were not actually moving, but I did get a big kick out of the fact that you had two glasses on, your readers and your sunglasses.
Well, I'm 60 something now. There. Yeah. Picture.
Yeah. And then this, I think, was the start of the Strand, right?
Absolutely. This was the trip I started that project on. Yep.
Yeah. And this was, and I don't remember the name of the town, but this was, I don't know if this
Iron River.
Huh?
Iron River.
Iron River. That's right. And a morning shot at sunrise. Grain bins and the boat. Oh, another shot of So then this was Carl in the early 1980s where he had a man bun. Do you remember that?
Yeah, well, everybody had a ponytail. I used to have a ponytail forever, but
yeah.
since the 70s, but
Yeah.
it was going away and becoming a man bun at this point.
Yeah. And then this was last year, I think,
That's
right?
right. Yep. Yep. That's right.
So now I wanted to show the website. I'm gonna your website. I'm gonna post this. I'm gonna quit sharing. I'll post your links in the chat.
And there's a question in the chat also. Are there some places in the US that you haven't visited but would like to explore with your camera?
Um, hmm. uh, well, I've, at the risk of sounding somewhat arrogant, I've been everywhere in the United States. I mean, I really have been everywhere, and but not Hawaii. But I don't like islands, so it's not going to happen. But I, I find it, some of the best stories are in your backyard. So I want to keep working. I work close to home. I am working on a project now about the longest road in America. It's Route 20 from Boston to Newport, Oregon, and I'm about a third of the way through, maybe a fourth of the way through, and that's been real rewarding for me so far. So I'm working on that.
Well,
But
Joe has
no,
his hand up.
anywhere is good. I mean, you don't have to go in an exotic place to make a photograph. You
Yeah.
just got to open your eyes,
Joe, what's up?
I want to know what you have against islands. What does that mean? You don't like islands?
I don't like islands.
I mean,
I
there
feel
are
like
little
I'm in a
islands,
jail
then there are
cell. I
big
mean, it's like
islands.
I just don't like islands. Like I'm just not real fond of being on an island. That just isn't my demeanor to be on an island.
All right.
I like to be able to go wherever I want to go and not be held back by 1,000 miles of ocean or whatever. I like the continent. I'm a continental guy.
Yeah, but that's why they invented airplanes.
Yeah, no, but I mean, it's just, yeah. No, I don't mind. I mean, but no.
I understand Hawaii is beautiful. You should try it.
I hear
I've
it
never
is.
been either. But
I hear it is. I'm going.
Yeah, it is absolutely wonderful, although I would recommend Kauai or the Big Island. Carl, the Big Island is big enough that you could almost pretend it's not an island.
Oh,
You could pretend like it's a small continent.
yeah. I would. I could then. Yeah.
Try Ireland. I mean, you can drive it there and back in a day.
Yeah,
I
okay.
go out to the shore.
Okay, England's an island. I get it, Paul.
Oh, Ireland's even smaller. 320 miles long. And
I'm going to Ireland
110
next summer.
wide.
Next summer, I'm going to Ireland.
Oh, great. Yeah, definitely. We'll meet up.
Yeah,
Part of his rehabilitation therapy, right?
that's right.
Excellent.
Get in
I'm
an
starting
island.
with the Big Island. Yep.
Yeah.
I go over to Evanston. I stand on the shore of Lake Michigan. I look across. I don't see anything. It's like being on an island, except.
Well, yeah, I like Lake Michigan. Yeah, I like the Great Lakes. Yeah.
I took my son out there. I said, "Look over there." He said, "What's that?" I said, "England."
Yep.
Carl, I was going to mention, you mentioned that you were a Guggenheim Fellow. The Strand is the show that, and I put a link to the Guggenheim page for you, and then mention the fact that you're represented exclusively by a gallery in Paris, which I'm actually going to go visit. Becky and I are going to go visit, and we're going to go to that cafe that you recommended. So talk about that a little bit, about gallery representation.
Well, this is kind of business. I don't know if anybody's interested in that, if they're interested in business type stuff, but I've had galleries in New York and LA and Milwaukee and such and down south, but I kind of started pulling it all back in and reevaluating everything, and then I was introduced to these folks in Paris, and they're a good fit, and I like them a lot, and it's a small gallery. They represent I think only 13 or 14 photographers. That's important to me, that you get attention from the gallery to represent you, and they do. They're good to their photographers. They pay their bills, and they're just wonderful people to work with, and they represent, I think, 4 or 5 Magnum photographers. Susan Mazelis and me and a few other folks, whose names escape me, but they're a good gallery. So yeah, they're kind of the gallery I work with mostly. And then other than that, I work with dealers. And I sell through auction houses, through Heritage and Heinemann and Phillips. And I find that the relationship with the curators at the auction houses is much more pleasant because there's no real commitment, but they like you and they make money from you, and you like them because you're making an income from them, and it's a nice way to work, and that's the way I've chosen to work in the States, without galleries. But
And you make all your own prints, and you have um, uh, open editions or limited editions?
no, I've sold out a few editions. My editions, the what happened was as soon as I went to Paris, they decided to increase the print prices and lower the edition sizes, except for those that have already gone beyond that number. And um, so that's what we did. And they're right. They're smart. It makes for collectors, they would rather see that you have 8 prints and available than 20. I used to do editions of 20, and now it's editions of 8 with 2 artist proofs. And that's how it works. And only one print at a smaller 13-19 size, and the rest are bigger, a little bigger. Yeah. So that's how they structured it. And I think it's a wise move. I mean, they're experienced. They know what they're doing. It's their business.
Are you printing your work, or
I do print all my own work. Yeah. Yep.
do you mind
I
sharing?
don't see Carl sending it out.
No, I don't see it either, but I need to ask, and a lot of times I ask these questions on the behalf of people that are going to be watching this later. What's your paper surface that you like the most for doing these?
I use Red River, Pale Duro soft gloss rag. I have to use a museum grade paper,
Yeah.
and so I use a rag paper, even though I do like the burritas a lot, because they're a little bit just a touch smoother. It's, side by side under glass, you can't tell the difference. But when you hold the print, but they're not as, they're a fiber base, a wood pulp based paper, even though they're acid free, they're still that. So
And Carl turned me onto that paper, and I really like Red River. We had Drew on,
Last-
right, Kevin?
Yeah, his video is going to go up tonight.
Yeah, and the thing about Red River, well, aside from the fact that they do great customer service, they actually have photo size paper. And I like 8 by 10, 11 by 14, 16, 20. Don't give me that 22 by 17 shit, or the 13 by 19. I hate those sizes. I like the photo sizes. So that's just my opinion.
Well, your opinion is valid. I mean, I'm feel the same way and have stocked up all my paper that way now. But it's nice to be able to fit into things that are out there, easily without trimming down and all the things that you have to go to. Red River is quite the paper company, and Drew is really committed to the photographer.
So,
Yeah.
Carl, is that the same paper that you were showing
yeah.
last year?
Yes.
That with the kind of pearly surface?
Well,
Those prints kind of sparkled.
I was showing a few papers, because I print some portraits on metal to look like the daguerreotypes.
No, but it wasn't. This was not metal.
Over
When
that.
we were in your studio.
It's a regular. It looks like, what it looks a lot like is the Hahnemuhle photo rags, and yeah, it might be that. It was the paper that my prints were on the portfolio, if that's what you're talking about.
Yeah, those huge prints you pulled out. Yeah.
The little prints, the 17. Yeah, there's a little, but yeah.
Oh, those are the little ones. Yeah.
Those are little, but yeah, but those 17
Pardon me.
by 23, they're 17 by 25.
Yeah.
And see, that's a size I like, Jeff, because it fits the 2-3 format that I work in a lot. So that is nice about Red River. They really do think about the photographer, and I got to say this because I owe it to them to say it. I had some shipping damage occur, and I called them and told them, and they overnighted me. And I wasn't the old me, I was the new me. Real nice. Hey man, it's too bad this happened. And they said, well, we'll overnight your new paper. I said, you don't have to. You don't have to overnight anything to me. And I said, what should I do with the old paper? They go, well, use what you can of it, and we'll overnight your new paper anyway. And they did. And that's that company. Not many companies are like that anymore.
That's what they're good at.
They're good at, yeah.
Yep.
Anyway,
Anyway, we need to bring this to a close. We've been going quite a while, and if there's any other questions, now's the time to ask them, and then we'll say goodbye and whatnot. So if you have a question, feel free to unmute your mic and just chime in, and if not, we'll give it a minute to see if there's anybody out there that has a question, which we don't see anybody chiming in. Which, wait, don't say we didn't give everybody a chance, right?
Yep.
Carl, once again, having seen your other presentations and other things, your work is amazing.
Oh God, he's gonna get a big head now. Jesus.
Bigger.
He can
Bigger
handle
head.
it. He's just going to need a bigger cap.
Yeah.
But
It's a stretch. This is an elastic thing. Yeah.
it does show a great slice of America, and the pictures will live on forever. Amazing eye and talent, and I really appreciate what you did today and shared with all of us. Amazing set of photographs, inspirational. I know of a couple little taverns I visit in my own town, which I think it's about time I, actually document those instead of drinking and talking to Deborah. So we'll have to be changing that. And thanks. Give me something new to look at. Appreciate it.
Yep. Thank you, Kevin. It was great to talk to everyone. Hope you got something out of it.
Oh gosh, I think so. We will be putting a recording of this up in the next week or so, and we see the volume of people watching that go up quite a bit, because it's just kind of awkward to try to make a Wednesday middle of the afternoon for people that are working and so forth. So a lot more people should enjoy this. And
What, work? Who works?
there's people out there that still got to do a job, Jeff.
Yeah, I suppose.
All right. Well, look, everybody, thank you very, very much
Thank
for
you.
stopping
Thanks,
by.
Carl.
Bye-bye. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Be safe out there. Have a good holiday, and keep the positive spirit.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.